Welcome to LatB, the only podcast that comes with a free Bandits bonus.
Express delivery included.
LatB, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the LatB podcast.
Welcome back. Episode 206, The Mourning After. Oh, what a weekend of fights we had coming out of Rochester, New York. 13-card bout, and dare I say that it delivered. I know some people are having mixed reviews, but we had more finishes ever on a card this year so far in 2019. 9 finishes throughout the night, so the pacing was a little bit off, but I guess we've been a little bit accustomed to these fast-paced shows that there was a bunch of finishes early on where all of a sudden it started to drag on like that FS1 type of a deal that we used to have where it's like, okay, now I got 25 minutes to go do chores around the house. I got 25 minutes. Can I chug a beer in 25 minutes? Yes. The answer is yes. How are you since we last met? How was your DK night? How was your betting weekend?
You've been saying fight burnout, and I haven't felt it. But last night I just didn't. It was like if my fight game was erectile dysfunction, it needed a Viagra. Like, I just felt like, yeah, okay, thanks for the submission finish. Thanks for the knockout. Like, I'm an ungrateful child. I have UFC burnout, I think.
Hey, we're going to get a little 2-week break here in order to replenish the wanting and desire of good fights. I felt like we had a good fight night, but we've been championing it here for a little bit. I'll not be saying that, okay, that fatigue's wearing a little thin. We got 8 weeks in a row that we've been doing it hard, and it's just, you know, a lot of things started smashing together, especially after coming out of a Brazil card where we had some of the most marquee finishes we've had in the sport of all time. So it's hard to come off of a show like that and be really excited for it, but it was technically a show that delivered, I feel like. It was just, I felt amongst the Twitterverse as well. A lot of burnout, a lot of accounts saying, I'm going to take a 2-week break. Yeah, because there's no fights. We're all going to take a 2-week
yeah,
break.
Like, wow.
Yeah, oh, good.
How novel of you.
Exactly. Whoa, you really felt it. Yeah, we all feel it. It's all good. We got more than enough things to talk about here at LatB, so make sure you're liking and subscribing because we ain't going to come at you one of these weeks with nothing. We always got fun information to bring to you guys. It was a star-studded event as far as the weekend was involved. We had Gary Tonin getting another heel hook submission. We had a bunch of other organizations really performing throughout the weekend. Did you happen to catch any of the highlights coming out of
Nothing.
The other MMA promotions?
I think Deontay Wilder, did he fight as well?
That was a bit after the fight card, but yeah, that he ended up finishing a fight in the first round at the end of the last minute. I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. I'm not surprised.
Fight burnout. And fight burnout, and the Game of Thrones. It was like, how could it ever live up? How could it live up to the hype? It's like Sage Northcutt at 1. How is it even possible to live up to
Thank you very much, because that is a hot topic we got to get into. Sage Northcutt finally taking a bout against an actual credentialed fighter out of the one championships. Was he Alexander? I can't think of his name. Cosmo Alexander, something like that. I'm sure I'm wrong with the name, but either way, it ended up being a whole 29 seconds of the first round where Sage Northcutt ate an overhand right, which completely broke that gorgeous, beautiful little face of his into a million pieces. He unfortunately had to have 9-hour surgery.
Are you shitting me?
No, I'm not joking at all.
His jaw or something?
Yeah, well, he fractured his complete orbital. Is no longer attached to his cheekbone.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was in Asia getting 9 hours of surgery. Uriah Faber posting like, hey, you guys don't know. Sage just come out of surgery. He's looking good. He's got a big old eye patch on. But yeah, that one punch completely shattered Sage Northcutt's face. Here, I'd like to talk a little bit of trash, but of course, I don't want to see anybody take that type of damage. Sage is already saying he wants to come back. It's only a matter of time. I'm thinking, go back to your engineering, dude. Like, that's the type of injury where you're like, all right, I have a brain still. Let's go on that getting paid route where he's making good money, but
I've seen the UFC get a lot of hate because of Eddie Alvarez's finish and now Sage's, and they're like, what's the talent pool like over at the UFC? And I'm like, well, for all intents and purposes, Eddie was on the end of his career, and Sage Northcutt, I'm not trying to be cruel, but he's kind of a UFC never was. He's more of a hype train than anything.
I feel like his what happened with Sage was he outpriced himself, where the UFC was like, dude, we're not going to give you $150,000. And one was like, yeah, dude, you want $200,000? We don't care. And that makes logical sense as far as the fighter career. It doesn't matter if you have the belt or not, because there's many fighters who have had or been close to that belt that haven't made close to the amount of money Sage Northcutt has in his short amount of career.
Yeah.
So he's doing something right. I don't know if it's adding up. He's
bodied up.
Yeah, exactly. I do feel like there was a bit of interesting undertows as far as that goes. Supposedly there was a TJ tweet saying, "Hey, I showed Sage how to do EPO and look at where it got him." It looked like it could have been a troll account, but there's a lot of people just saying regardless, it's the truth. Did you see any of that stuff rolling around on the Twitterverse last night?
Are you trying to say EPO makes you have a weak chin?
No. I'm just trying to say that supposedly TJ Dillashaw touched everybody on the way out. It's like hepatitis C. You're all going to get it if you're using the same needle. So it's, I guess, just a dirty laundry. I don't think that it's factually true, but the community has essentially acknowledged it and been like, well, I'm not surprised looking at Sage Northcutt all bodied out. Any other one and or other organization stocks that we can think of, highlights? We talked about the Wilder a bit. Straight right hand ended up finishing it in the first round. So not much to say there other than his only real competition is, again, the Gypsy King himself.
Yeah. And for all intents and purposes, the Gypsy King already won that fight once.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, I guess we can just get on into it. Do it early today. Everybody is waiting on the last GFT.
Truth. Ain't the only one. How bad is that train wreck going to end up finishing? It's almost as bad as Anderson Silva's end of his career. Woo! I went there. Yes, I went there. It's just, I mean, BJ Penn. Maybe BJ Penn. That's a better attribute for it, because it's been rough as far as the Game of Thrones talk goes. It's been bad writing all the way around. But we don't have to dive too deep into that, all that news. Has there been any other shows have you gotten into since all of this has been going down before we get into the
Two Dope Queens? That's all I've been watching. It's pretty good. If we have any lady listeners out there, maybe some dudes will laugh their asses off at it too. I just think it's feminine oriented. I don't even want to say ladies anymore in today's climate. It's toward feminine oriented. Two Dope Queens!
I never watched all of the I Shouldn't Be Alive series, but I have been just scrolling through those episodes and getting through them. Some of them are pretty fun. Some of them are like, really? You didn't think you were going to fall off that cliff and die? Okay. Okay, I'm surprised you made it alive. But it's one of those shows where I'm like, I kind of know the outcome. You survive, right?
Of Two Dope Queens?
No, I'm talking about I Shouldn't Be Alive. The show that I'm subscribing, that I'm telling you guys to listen to. I went back and started watching old episodes of that because I had never watched it during the season. I watched that
on True TV back in the day.
Back in the day, I haven't. I'm rewatching. But I'm just saying, it's one of those shows that I'm just like, spoiler alert,
weird
they
shit.
Make it.
Like they're floating in the middle of the ocean for 2 weeks, and they're in the middle of the Alps for a week.
Right, exactly.
Like crazy shit.
They're drinking their own pee for 5 days and all that craziness.
That for sure is okay.
It's fun, but it's also fun to just kind of break that down and be like, you're so stupid. The other
show,
please.
Active Shooter. It is so intense. And everybody out there knows I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I take things for what they are. But a lot of the information in all of these happened the way it happened, regardless of what you think was the underbelly behind all of it. It's still these people's account on the scene of being in an active shooter situation, like some of the most famous active shooter shit across the country.
Interesting. Wow.
It's so intense. Sounds intense. Yeah, some of them, really another angle on it, like, I didn't even know that went down like that. The San Bernardino one, there was a lot of like, I didn't know that was just like office party. We're all hanging out at the office party, and the guy we work with just leaves the room really fast, and we don't notice because we're at the office party.
Yeah. And all of a sudden,
he comes back in.
You're in a Bruce Willis situation, crawling through a duck.
Yes.
Hell yeah! Get me in that beast. Give me a stapler. Let's go. Rainbow tie and a tie on my head.
Just felt
we get it done.
For rat-tat-tatting about people's.
Oh, agreed. We don't wish that on anyone. I'm sorry. But it is the world we live in.
This is America.
Speaking of America, we have one of the most American places of them all, Rochester, New York, coming at us with a 13-card bout. Starting off at 145 pounds, we had Julio Arce being the biggest favorite of the night, coming in against it, not debuting, Julian Juicy J. Rosas. As we said it before, we'll say it again. You're on a 4-fight losing streak, getting finished nonstop. Time to get on out of here, my friend. Get that Michelin star. Get the third, fourth, fifth rating. But, it's a different career. The hobby of fighting is fun, but Erosa, hopefully you just find better ventures outside of the UFC belt contenders, because I think that even at LFA he could hold a belt, but in the UFC he's just not going to be able to make a run for the belt. What do you take away from this fight? It ended up finishing a minute 49 seconds into the third round, but I never really felt that Arce was in too much trouble. Erosa looked good for a second, but essentially that chin always seems to falter him. You take anything away from this first fight of the night other than staying away from it as far as LatB DK standards go? Julian Erosa is only getting 96, 97 points with a 9,600 type of score.
It went even worse than we thought it was going to go. Maybe it was a smart play if you ended up playing with Arce and not a big fat stay away like we said. We both saw it kind of going this way. So it was a mild surprise at how nasty it was. Yeah, I am agreeing with you, though, that it's time for Erosa to get on out of there.
Mr. Juicy J, unfortunately, for Julio Arce at 145, I mean, he just keeps climbing the ranks, getting hopefully, it's not even top 15 contender in here, but he does have to get those guys that are also fighting for that top 15 contention. So Arce got many fights to go. Erosa's, thank you very much for the fun fights, but time to go. At 185 pounds, we had Underdog coming through with Zak Cummings getting a submission round number 3 over Trevin Giles. Bigger favorite of the night, Giles ended up actually having a pretty contested bout. That straight right was a piston through those uppercuts every once in a while. Had Zak Cummings hurt early on in that first round, but sure enough, the veteranship of Zak Cummings came through that wrestling and just constant grind, started to slow down Trevin Giles just enough. And then really, the finish started coming in that third round. I believe it was striking for Cummings, and eventually ended up hurting Giles and jumping on that guillotine choke and diving in deep. But did Zak Cummings have a really injured eye in the first round of this fight?
It wasn't the worst eye of the night that we saw that people had. It wasn't stoppable. It wasn't fight stoppable eye. He overcame a little bit, but in a way, Trevin Giles kind of gave up just as much as Zak Cummings' veteranship came through. It wasn't too much of a surprise to me. Zak Cummings was one of the weird guys I rode heavy in the night. I just didn't know anything about Trevin Giles.
Well, one of the things we knew is that he was coming off of that apprenticeship for the police academy, and it's one of those double dipping situations where we tend to stay away. So as far as DraftKings, I really stayed away from Giles as well. Didn't think it was going to go to a finish. It went for Cummings. I only had a bit of exposure to Cummings on that, but ended up working out through the night. It was a fun night of bets as far as I'm concerned. DraftKings and straight up prop bets. It was just money making weekend. Ton of underdogs coming through, and it started off with Zak Cummings again. How long do you think he stays at 185 pounds? Because I kind of think Giles might be a bit of a hype train where Cummings against a Thiago Santos type of a character, or Derek Brunson type of a character, all of a sudden, that's a much different fight than a Trevin Giles.
Zak Cummings isn't really going to go for a title anytime soon, but he's going to separate the, what do they say? What's that saying? Separate the wheat from the...
Strong from the weak?
No, wheat from the...
Barley?
I don't know. Wheat from the stalk.
Okay. I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yep.
Some old saying. Separate that. Anyways, I do think he'll be like a good screen that if you can get through Zak Cummings, you are UFC caliber. I don't think Zak Cummings is ready to go anywhere yet, and I don't think Trevin Giles is UFC ready.
I would totally agree with that. At 205 pounds, we had a big stay away from us here at LatB with Ed Herman coming in against Pat Cummings. Ended up deciding with a 3-1 favorite Cummings, thinking the wrestling was going to get it done in there. At short fuse, Herman showed that he still has serviceable takedown defense, but as we were saying on the show, why this was such a big stay away is because he can't trust the chin of Cummings, and for that reason alone, had limited exposure in a decision type of a win for Cummings and DK, but actually exposed myself a bit to Herman because he has the more value or higher ceiling in that shot, and it ended up paying out for Herman. He ended up cashing me on a couple, but
for you.
I only had maybe 2 out of 10 cards. I ended up having
really
Herman,
good,
but
though.
still, no Cummings at all because Patrick Cummings is a decision fighter.
Anywhere either.
Totally.
And I didn't have Ed Herman either. But after the fight played out, it's like hindsight 2020, but kind of over Patrick Cummings going forward. And Ed Herman's a dirty, grimy guy. He really takes a beating and keep on ticking. He really keeps going forward. He took some nasty strikes that I thought were going to end him. These guys were banging not like 185ers. The amount of output both guys was putting in there, it seemed like a 135er fight or something. I was so impressed with their output, and that you could hear the strikes. Like the octagon was really mic'd up.
I totally agree. It was one of those where you're like, wow,
somebody
this isn't
was
going
getting
past,
knocked out.
This ain't going past the second round. No way around it. Both of these guys swinging really, really well. But with their kind of spotty careers, do you think they both hold their positions in the UFC, or do you think it's time for one of these guys to go? Because both at 38 years old, on their type of records, I guess it's a weak division. I hate to say it,
but both of them having a round or fighting like that fighting style, that gets you another fight in the UFC.
Even in a loss.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Fight in the UFC. I kind of like Ed Herman as a nasty little underdog going forward.
Ugh. Every time I bet on him, he burns me. When I don't bet on him, he burns me. So I'm just off on Ed Herman. I've been trying to fade him for a while. I've also been trying to fade Cummings for a while. So just waiting. There's interesting spots for both of those fighters coming up. At 145 pounds, we had a submission win.
Oh my gosh, I'm 2-5 for Ed Herman.
I haven't been able to get a read on Herman at all.
Nasty.
But a guy that I have been a little bit of a short read on has been Grant Dawson, not on Trezino so much whatsoever at 145 pounds. 2 minutes and 27 seconds into the second round. Trezino winning that first round. It was a close one, but I would say the takedown actually went for Dawson in that first round. He ended up getting reversed back to his feet, but the bigger strikes were landed by Trezino. Trezino, really underrated jab. It's really precise and keen in there, but we did see finally holes in his game, and it was Grant Dawson's ground game. Once that second round came in and Dawson realized that he was getting pieced up on the feet, on the ground, it really didn't look like he had too much of a hard path to get to that rear naked choke. It seemed like Trezino was kind of fighting it, and all of a sudden, it was deep. And Grant Dawson really came through. Here, if you're following at Zol tonight, at Weekneck Baby, at Lesbo on the Bean, you're going to end up getting a bet. I had plus money on Grant Dawson and ended up switching to fight day. Grant Dawson being a minus 135 favorite, but you're getting plus money as far as we're concerned. You would have cashed out. I ended up cashing out on this fight. It was a fun one. I think both of these young men have a big future ahead of them. I don't think this loss hurts either of them. 14-1 to the 8-1 now. The O just went for Trevino. I think as they go on in their careers, they're both going to realize these are top-level echelon guys. It's going to be McGregor-Holloway when they first fought. This is the type of fight I see this kind of being as far as tacticians.
I kind of agree with you. I liked everything I saw from Mike Trezano, and I think going against a ground specialist like Grant Dawson only makes him better. He needed the loss to realize what he needed to work on, kind of, to take him to the next level, and I loved his hands. He looked so crisp in the stand-up game. Grant Dawson, a lot grimier and tougher. He took some strikes when in the stand-up that would have put a lot of other people on their arse, and he had really great takedowns where it wasn't just one-dimensional. He went in and had like levels. He had great level changes, and even when Trezano seemed like his IQ was on point, I just liked the way that Grant Dawson kept pressing forward. I don't think Trezano gave up here, like different other submissions in the night that we'll talk about when we get to him. I actually think I liked both guys here. I like what you're saying, and I think they're both going to be underdogs going forward.
I don't know about for Dawson so much, because finishing Trezano, who's never lost at all, I think he's going to have a bit more of the hype train, but I definitely see Trezano being one of these guys you're going to get at underdog money and win those type of decision bouts, because he is good. Dawson might be that next type of level as far as his mentality right now. At 170 pounds, we had debuting Mikael Pereira coming in against Daddy Roberts. And if you listen into the breakdowns, we told you got a shit-eating wild man on your hands. Backflip City. Danny Roberts being a somewhat favorite in here, but here at LatB, we told you can't bet on Danny Roberts at all. His chin is too weak, and with this type of a striker, it's just one of those situations where the striker's more likely to cash out on you, and sure enough did it do with Pereira. Out of the two fighters, I didn't play Danny Roberts at all because he's known to shit on bus many a times for me, and Pereira came out and did what he did, as you were alluding to, crying on his debut, walking out. I was actually a bit scared for my bets because I had inside the distance Pereira, but I was hedging my bets there. As far as DraftKings and bet-wise, I had Pereira, but supposedly it should have been Danny Roberts to win. But Pereira, have you ever seen somebody be that emotional on their walkout to their debut fight?
Never. It was embarrassing.
It was definitely...
Like, at first I was like, okay. But then he couldn't get it together. Yep. It was like, for real, like he was about to walk up to the casket at a funeral.
Totally agree.
I thought it was like a lot of emotion. And I don't mind emotion. It was the kind of emotion like they handed him the belt.
Well, you get gassed. It gasses you out eventually. Eventually you're like, wow, I didn't realize that crying wears me out. Yeah, it does. Just like anything else. Think of all those little palpitations, all that water you're leaking. So definitely with Pereira, you saw some of that wildness in there. Him throwing some crazy foot combinations, coming in with, what was that? Superman punches, kicks from anywhere. And Danny Roberts, as we were alluding to with the crying, when he got hurt with that knee, his way down, it slow motioned his face, and I could see through the layers of fog. I felt like I saw Danny Roberts being like, he hit me, and then he started to ugly cry essentially on the ground because he's like, damn it, I can't get up. He's been there enough where he realized this guy just got me. And Danny Roberts never really tried to defend himself. It was a grazing knee that landed in that first round.
I almost thought kind of what you're talking about with Sage Northcutt. I thought something like that happened to Danny Roberts. The way he grabbed his face like that looked like something snapped in
he
there.
Didn't try to even recover.
No, he looked like he just wanted to protect whatever injury just occurred. Like
I totally agree.
Something scared him.
For me, it just showed me, to me, he was just like, oh, I've been here 3 times before. I know what's happening. I'm game over.
It didn't seem like, I just would not be surprised at all. It just did not seem like a normal knockout or wobble. There's something like he broke his orbital or broke a bone in his forehead or something weird. It was just a very weird injured. It almost looked like he got electrocuted or something after. And the way that he just looked very just protective of a very precise injury in a weird way. And Pereira, holy shit, man. If that guy fights like that, he's going to wear the belt in like 3 fights. It was so frightening. How would have his gas tank have been? Like, I feel like I didn't learn anything from it because I also kind of make Danny Roberts a wash. That's
exactly what I was about to allude to, is that the fact that, as I'm saying on tape, when I saw this guy go to the end of 1 round with an actual UFC caliber type of fighter, he got knocked out. It's the only time. Because when he's a front runner, he looks amazing. He throws back flips and shit because he's not worried about anything, whether it's confidence of his chin or what it may be. But he'll do that. But in a fight where he has a wrestler or somebody who doesn't allow those spinning shots to come in, I feel like we're going to see a big fold in Pereira's ground game potentially, and or just gas tank. Because as you're saying, you can't keep that pace up. You can't keep up what he was doing. he had to come in there. But again, he's got nothing to lose. He's debuting in the UFC against a veteran. What's the worst thing that happens? He loses as an underdog. He definitely came through. It was a fun one. Ended up playing him.
Holy shit, this guy is on fire. I didn't play him anywhere. I didn't even see him come in. I felt like he's the biggest sneak up on me of the night. He just snuck right up on me, and I was like, oh, okay.
That Danny Roberts chin has something to do with it.
You're going to have to... Yeah, I know. But even... I don't know. The whole combinations were very frightening.
And just say, against the wrestler, Pereira is going to be a favorite that we're going to make money on against. And I will convince you of that because it's going to happen.
You'll have to remind me of him
It's going to happen. At 155 pounds, we had Des Green, one of the bigger favorites of the night, coming in against debuting Charles Air Jourdain. Jourdain coming in and... losing the first 2 rounds to the takedown and striking a little bit there. He was definitely outclassed by the more experienced veteran fighter in Green. Green really starting to show it, though, in that 3rd round. I really feel like Jourdain won that 3rd round pretty handedly, and it was him moving forward and even flipping off Des Green at the end of the 3rd because Des was literally running away from him. He literally turned his back and was like, I'm out. Jourdain... even though he lost this fight against the fighter like Des Green, I think he really showed out, and he's someone that I'm going to keep an eye on because this is where he makes his humongous step. He's, 23, 25 years old against a veteran 10-year fighter. I actually feel like this is a much more of an underperformance by Des Green more than anything, and I didn't play him anywhere on DraftKings, and it definitely saved me because he was very low output, got a couple takedowns in there, but really, again, just very spotty unless he's fighting a really worn fighter, and that is not Jourdain. I think there's money in this underdog eventually in his fights. Green, still a middling fighter for me. What'd you end up taking away from this fight?
Yeah, the only reason I even felt really confident about the fact that he was going to walk away with the win on this was the fact that he was the local guy. Mm-hmm. Other than that, this was a very sketchy fight, and the amount of favorite that he did not show it at all. You're right. I think Jourdain kind of walks away the winner in this fight, and Des Green, there was nothing surprising. That's exactly how it should have gone, except it should have been more handed with the amount of experience.
That's exactly what I think. It should have been much easier than it ended up turning out to be more than anything. At 135 pounds, we had Fight of the Night contender with Aspen Ladd coming in against Sijara Sarge Eubanks. This was a rematch, and these ladies brought it. I mean, technically, as far as a mixed martial arts bout, they showed you a bit of everything. They went to the ground, striking, throwing power shots as far as putting good combinations together. Actually, out of both fighters, I was more impressed with Sarge Sijara Eubanks. I thought her striking finally came into its own. She showed a little bit of power sitting down Aspen Ladd in that 1st or 2nd round there for a bit, but Ladd eventually getting it together and having a good enough game plan, getting the better takedowns, grinding more time out on top, using those little rabid punches to secure the round. That does matter. Ended up giving her a 30-27 type of round against Sarge Eubanks. But even as we're saying in the fight previous to this, I think Sarge actually turned me into more... I used to be much more against her because she was mentally so not there. But in this fight, moving up a weight class, I thought that she might have suffered a bit more from gas tank issues. And she really showed in there that she's getting it together. I think that eventually they might meet a 3rd time. Even though Aspen Ladd has 2 wins over her, I just see Aspen being at the top and Sarge getting 7 wins, 5 wins in that division, and they're going to have to do it again. So, what do you think went down in that fight? I was pleasantly surprised in this decision.
Yeah, I think Sijara Eubanks had more to gain by this fight, even as a loser, to just come in and have the performance that she had. She kind of held pace with Aspen Ladd, who's one of the hottest prospects, if not the hottest prospect at the 135. So Sijara held her own, if anything, and there was a lot of people surprised that Eubanks didn't win that fight, including Aspen Ladd. When the decision was read, she looked a little like... whew. Like, she was hoping, but it was close enough in her head that she wasn't 100% secure about it. So I had Aspen Ladd winning, but I was impressed by Sijara Eubanks. That was her best performance by far, but it also showed me a lot about Aspen Ladd because she's had a lot of quick finishes, and that fight was heavy paced with another heavy striker. She took a lot of damage, and she showed that she had cardio and heart to make it through all the way to the end. This is the decision that actually shows me more about Aspen Ladd. I needed to see this kind of decision from her to feel good about her going forward. I don't like the Francis Ngannou careers where it's knockout in one or nothing.
Totally.
So I like Aspen Ladd a lot, and she gave me almost 100 points, so it was worth it.
Definitely ended up paying off as far as DraftKings is advised here on LatB. You know you're always liking, you know you're always subscribing. If you want to get any extra deals, if it isn't just all the free money we're giving you, we're also trying to give you an extra 15% with that LatB 15 code at Lather & Company on Instagram, on Twitter. You know we're trying to save you money wherever you can. All we ask is a like and a subscribe, maybe a little share or retweet if you can out there. But this type of a weekend was money-making weekend. Ended up going 8 of 13. C went 7 of 13?
I think so. I made a little bit of extra money so I could go to latherandcompany.com, put in LatB15, get 15% off, and I'm spoiled. I tried other companies' soaps, and I felt like I was dehydrated. I felt like I had to drink a whole nother bottle of water that day. I had to kill the oceans with plastic, a little extra, because I couldn't use the right bar of soap. So I'm just saying, latherandcompany.com. Just a little throwback. Maybe if anyone else listened and they, I don't even think we put out a Bandit bonus.
I don't think we did.
But we put out underdogs, and if they followed you at Zoltanite, then they would have made enough money that they could also get free shipping and handling inside the continental United States if they spend $25 more on latherandcompany.com. Just saying.
The main event
like that. Let's see, we weaved in a whole bunch of information.
The main event started on ESPN Plus. How did you feel about the ESPN pacing throughout the night? We did have a lot of finishes spattered throughout there. There was a repertoire of commercials that felt like I was wanting to dig out my eyes at times. I don't even know what it was. Cialis? I don't know what they were selling me. I was just like, I don't care. Green,
that's what I
yellow,
needed,
fuzzy ball.
Cialis or Viagra. I'm like, oh, fights. I almost could have just... I felt like these were the fights that I finally could have been like, if I went to bed early, I wouldn't have hated myself.
And it was an early night.
And it was a great fight night, too. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just like, I really feel fight burnout.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. Hardcore can only be for hardcore for so long, and we're up there. We got a podcast talking about these fights. Just throwing that out there. So if we feeling it, we know other people are feeling it.
I'm just saying, if we ended up talking about you guys all better come prepared, because next week we might be talking about the finale of Game of Thrones.
Or is Sasquatch Psychic always one of my favorite
topics.
You
never know.
You don't know?
I thought is Sasquatch an alien?
That's a good one, too.
Is Sasquatch married to Ronda Rousey?
Is a Wookiee Sasquatch documentary in Star Wars? Is that just a Sasquatch documentary? We don't know. We'll get there. We'll break it down eventually. But the main event ended up starting out with Davy Ramos coming in at 155 against Austin Hubbard. Does Sasquatch have a
bad ground game?
Yes. I'll guarantee that.
I think so, too. Sasquatch seems tall, and a lot of the times bad ground game.
I think he leaves his arms out to just be snatched up. You be arm-barring the shit out of some Sasquatches.
I just think he goes belly down.
So, someone who didn't have to go to the ground and redeem himself was Austin Hubbard's coming in against Davy Ramos, the biggest favorite of the night. Davy Ramos ended up going to decision, and I think that's definitely a win for Hubbard. Hubbard got hurt a few times in there, but was able to defend the takedown defense and keep this fight striking. If anything, it showed that Davy Ramos does have weaknesses. That gas tank being on one of them as far as the striking as well. Hubbard didn't really exploit the chin of Ramos in there at all, but that's not what I took away from it. What I took was, hey, this guy doesn't have the best shots in the world. A good wrestler boxer is going to be Davy Ramos' nightmare. Guaranteed it. Guaranteed. He still should be a favorite. He should still be up in that top 12 type of fighter because he does have very unique specifications. And Davy Ramos, did you see the mini fridge that he looked like in there? He was as wide as he was tall. Or was that just my angle of camera?
Yeah, he looked enormous.
Humongous.
I couldn't believe it was the 155.
Humongous. So, Hubbard's going to get another fight in the UFC. He definitely, obviously, was going to take this loss. But, tough guy. I mean, Ramos landed some incredible shots on him and even tried some submissions. But Hubbard showed his toughness in there, being more of just a wrestler without the boxing. I think Hubbard can grind out other low-level fights, but unless he makes some big changes, I don't necessarily see a title run out of Hubbard, but I do see just a fun mix-up for other guys that are contending in there. Ramos, the hype's got to slow down a little bit, especially after this performance against the debuter. I think there was a lot of holes exploited in this match for him. What do you end up taking away from this big favorite?
I kind of see it the other way. I actually think that Austin Hubbard had good enough wrestling and was using it in reverse to kind of stifle what Davey Ramos is so good at. But I still think Ramos is so freaking dangerous in the division. It actually just makes me move Austin Hubbard, my thoughts of him, up on my list as opposed to move Davey Ramos down. So I kind of like both guys going forward, and I think there's money to be made on both guys. Mine is be careful of Ramos going forward fighting out of Brazil. I don't know. It just seems a little sketchy.
He was in New York.
I know. I'm going forward.
Oh, okay.
Be careful of him fighting out of Brazil. I just think where he goes from here, if he jumps up from an Austin Hubbard to any guy with name, it's a big, huge jump.
Agreed.
So maybe he fights better out of his home turf. But yeah, I'm kind of excited about both guys going forward. It was a grind.
It was a grind. It was definitely a hard fought bout. At 155 pounds, we had a finish in the second round. We had Charles Oliveira coming in against Nik Lentz. This is the third time they've met. Charles Oliveira has made it decided. There is no way he doesn't have Nik Lentz's number. He finished him all 3 times. What else do you need, Nik Lentz? You cannot beat Charles Oliveira. It's just unfortunate.
What else do you need, DC? I mean, Nik Lentz.
Exactly. You cannot beat Charles Oliveira. And Nik Lentz, I was on him here. I had him as the underdog. I was really thinking he was going to be able to turn it into a grinding, dirty fight. There was a couple groin shots or eye pokes in this one. Wasn't there a stop or two in this one for sure? Nik Lentz, I believe, getting hit in the groin, but Charles Oliveira just showing his new mindset and showing that all of these other hiccups in the fight weren't going to hurt him when they used to. Sometimes breaking up the rhythm of the fight was really getting to Oliveira, but he's proven now that he now understands, okay, this is the way a fight goes. I'm okay with eating a shot. Lentz threw some good hard lefts in there, hard rights, clipping Oliveira, but again, Oliveira was a man on a mission here. I ended up going all sourpuss on Nik Lentz. I was off of him for so long. As soon as I get on him, I'm wrong, so I just don't have Nik Lentz's number, but as far as I'm concerned, it's time to get on out of here and stay away, Nik Lentz. I'm back on that train. What'd you take away from this massacre?
I hate to say this, but Nik Lentz is still going to ruin some of your nights betting against him because he's still going to be in for a few, and he is that grind-out guy with that carny strength that'll just keep coming sometimes. It makes me feel like Charles Oliveira, as much hate as I want to give him on and off, he kind of has filled into his body, and I used to think he had no heart and he was filled with quit. Now I think maybe that was Kid Oliveira, maybe that was Chuck Oliveira, that was Chucky Oliveira, the young kid. Now Charles Oliveira, the grown man. This is the kind of fight that I like to see. He took a little bit of damage in this fight. He kept coming forward. He stuck with his game plan, what he's good at, and I loved his Slytherin dance after he submits someone. I like it. I need to remind myself, you guys can remind me, I need to stay on that Charles Oliveira bandwagon. I think there's a lot of money to be made on him going forward, but everybody else should see it too until he gets to those big names like the Cerrones and whatnots.
I think you're totally spot on with Lentz as well. If you're giving him a debut fighter, somebody who's only had one fight in the UFC, Nik Lentz is the type of guy to beat those guys.
If it's a guy that's a knockout artist, Nik Lentz can beat them.
100%. But these all-around specialists for everywhere, like Charles Oliveira is coming, I think you're 100% spot on. He's someone we do need to be putting our money behind. At 170 pounds, we had Vicente Luque, the decided biggest favorite of the night, minus 1,200 when it was all said and done, coming in.
Wow, a lot of people's buttholes went like this when this fight started. Right when this fight started, people were nervous.
In the first 5 seconds, Derek D-Rock Krantz came in with nothing to lose. We told you guys, be careful, because this guy, if he loses, okay, we expected it, but if he wins, that's when it matters. And D-Rock took that chance. He came out there and swung with his life on the line in that first round, and it almost worked because he hurt Vicente Luque with that right hand, ended up jumping on his back, hurting Luque, and having Luque in all sorts of trouble, getting almost a rear naked choke. a few times, but Vicente really centering himself. You could see him start a process, shake out the cobwebs, and just meticulously go to the ground. Once this ended up finishing via TKO punches, once Luque got back up off of the ground, it really showed just his veteranship in there. I liked the little bit we saw of Luque. I really liked because he did have to travel through adversity, which is always something good. I wish he would have maybe went a little longer just for that cardio to help. He did have a short notice bout that was replaced, so not really his fault all that much. But as far as Derek Krantz, the 31-year-old, 24-10, 24-11 now record, I think this is a guy that can get other people out of there. It was just a bit too heavy of a step up.
Too quick, too.
Exactly.
Too quick of
but he had to do this just to get in the UFC because he was, again, going to fight on the Contender Series for a shot. Now he's in. He's in. Guaranteed. He's got another fight.
I hate to say this, but Vicente Luque is almost the new Kamaru Usman, where everyone's ducking him. So he can't get a fight worth a shit, worth a name. Magny was that first fight to be worth a name, and I think it is a duck in ways. I think this is going to kind of keep happening, and my hopes is, and if you get 3 Krantzes in a row, there's a good chance for anyone, no matter how skilled, somebody's going to take a shot in the dark and be able to knock you out and change your career for the worst. I'm hoping it's a guy like Krantz that doesn't ruin a fucking phenomenal fireball like Vicente Luque. Like, this guy is the one. He's our... you know how we were looking at, like, our Usman, our
right.
Josa. It's Luque. It's easily Vicente Luque.
They train together, though. Do you think they'll take a fight against each other?
I just think it's Usman's as long as it's Usman's until he moves up to 185 and decides to make the run there. But it's almost like the DC Luke Rockhold waiting in a line till each one of them can take the division, or Kane DC for the heavyweight. I just think Luque, I feel like he's one of those guys I've watched improve so much too. Not only was he awesome, but now he's even 10 times more awesome. Like this Vicente Luque murks Vicente Luque of Tough House. It's, I don't know. It makes me bummed out. He deserves a big name. He deserves a big fight.
He deserves a Magny, but Magny's too busy putting all sorts of L304 oxidioxides in his body.
Oh, is that what happened?
It was like an L3 something compound. I feel like it might... I can't quote me on this, but I feel like it might have been a EPO slight HGH thing. It was an L344 or something is all I keep hearing. I don't exactly know the compound, but everyone who's saying it is like, you don't get that in supplements. You get that in a direct butt cheek injection, as we were talking about before. Exactly.
Wasn't there another weird fight that was canceled of recent?
The one on short notice.
Oh, somebody got injured just recently, and in my head I thought, right. Duck. It's a duck.
Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, who fell out of that fight with Robbie Lawler?
T. Wood. Tyrone Woodley just fell out.
Why? Yeah. I thought immediately duck.
Rematch. It was a rematch.
He doesn't want to fight T. Wood or Robbie Lawler. He just said he would to not get the hate.
Well, to get that Askren fight out of there, because that was going to be a rematch. So then T. Wood, so he's like, yeah, I'll take that fight. Oh, I'm hurt.
I'm hurt.
Oh, and then he doesn't have to take that. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we did have that news come over the weekend. LatB conspiracy. Do you guys believe T. Wood ducked that fight on purpose or didn't? I feel like we both feel that it was a negotiation ploy. And I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, he helped out Ben Askren to move on with the fight.
Exactly.
And then it's kind of funny that Ben Askren moves from the fight like Robbie Lawler to a kind of similar fight in a Jorge Masvidal, which are the two, that's the style he doesn't want. That grinder with good hands.
Good
he doesn't want
defense.
that. Yeah,
Ugh.
so it's kind of funny.
Interesting fight. I'm excited for that one for sure. One that ended up coming out of left field was at 145 pounds. We had Felicia debuting. Spencer coming in against Megan Anderson. The Orlando math teacher ended up coming in with a black belt in Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu. She was the LFA champion, but again, limited competition. And against Megan Anderson, here we were predicting the big favorite to be able to come through with her takedown defense and keep this striking. And that was not the case. Megan Anderson has gaping holes.
What did you say that she had? Takedown defense? What's this thing?
No. She had definitely gaping holes in her defense, and it was directly getting to the ground. Megan, when you said Holly Holmes took her down, I was like, oh, it's Holly Holmes. She's an athlete. We don't have to worry about that. Boy, was I wrong. Should have listened to you the entire time, because Megan is a Muay Thai striker with zero ground game, and that's something that against anyone with even a limited ground game. Everybody sees it. Can't trust her one bit. I mean, it went directly to the ground. Felicia Spencer got right in her face, didn't let Megan get any strikes going, and sure enough, Megan just allowed her to get to the back and ended up finishing in a rear naked choke. Nothing to take too much away from this other than Spencer's still a 125er to me who needs to just keep working on her diet. But who else in this division? Cyborg, that's it. And Mata Leon is the next one that she fights.
Yeah, and Amanda says that she's kind of going to do that, and that's that. Like, she's going to fight Holly, and that's that. She's retiring. She is not sticking around for
all these up-and-comers
this
to come
body.
out. Exactly. So Spencer, I mean, essentially with this win is in title contention that quickly. It is pretty unreal at how fast the divisions move, where at 155 you can have an 11-fight winning streak and you're not even close to the belt, where at 145 pounds you can debut and be the number 2 in the division immediately. It's kind of ridiculous. And still we don't got no 65. We still ain't got no 65. What are you doing to Dana White? You're breaking me down. Breaking me down, Dana. Ariel Helwani officially coming out with a prediction.
I'm trying to hold him back.
Ariel Helwani officially coming out and predicting that there's going to be a 165-pound division in our lifetime. I feel like he's an insider. I feel like he talks to ESPN and has all this bigger stuff. Pretty sure we're getting a division.
Because now it behooves ESPN to let Ariel know shit. So it's kind of funny that everything that Dana always hated is now what Ariel does for a living.
Right. Now they pay him for it. And they're like, hey, here's some Ski-Kid scoop. So definitely can't wait for that division to open up because we got murderers on every which side waiting to get in there. And at 185 pounds, the co-main event, we have another murderer coming in to the division.
What did you think about that chick, though? She looked all right.
Spencer?
Felicia Spencer?
Yeah, I liked her, but I think that, again, Megan Anderson is so limited as far as her ground game that I saw Spencer have much harder fights in Invicta compared to what Anderson put up. Anderson put up 0 fights, so that's where I'm like, against this, her next only other option is Christina Cyborg. Justino, exactly. So it's like, so you don't have a fight at 145. Who's else? Tanya Evinger, who's fighting in 2 weeks at 135? No. So it's really just tough for Spencer. She's pretty much only gonna be able to fight Cyborg, Mata Leon, or Megan Anderson for a rematch. Unfortunate in that spot.
Yeah, it's crazy. I kind of take the blame a little bit for Megan Anderson because I feel like Twitter got her a job and she ain't great. We all just were like pulling for something we maybe never saw.
The super tall hottie.
Yeah, maybe.
With the tats.
Maybe.
With the tats, for
maybe
sure.
We should all blame ourselves.
At 185 pounds, the co-main event, we had a murderer coming in with Ian Heinisch as the underdog against Cara de Zapato, Carlo Antonio Jr. We told you guys, if you're following LatB, you're trying to make money. We both had the underdog here for a reason, telling you that Shoeface is a little limited in the gas tank. Yes, he's a better athlete. Yes, he has better striking and jiu-jitsu. But once that gas tank starts to falter, all that goes out the door. All of a sudden, you see him losing basic transitional positions. Not that Heinisch is basic because he was doing high-level stuff in there, but it was just a war at wills going into that third round. First round, Shoeface won. I will any day of the week. Second round, went to Heinisch. This is the controversial part that I'm seeing from this, though, is that people were really upset about the fence grab with Heinisch and say that won him the entire fight. I still think that second round was a toss-up. I gave it to Heinisch without the fence grab. The ref said, we're going to take a point after this, regardless. And, hey, warn me as long as you get to poke him in the eye, too. Okay, give him a warning for that. Kick him in the nuts, too. Get a warning for that. As long as my bets are cashing, I'm motherfucking okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm motherfucking okay with it. Get it after the fact. But we're telling you, Cara de Zapato is one of these guys against grinders. Is just, he doesn't have it. He's been such a high-level athlete for so long that once he gets into trouble, instead of rallying through, he gives up a little bit. And we saw it with Dan Kelly, and we saw it here. We're telling you. We can see it. At least I'm telling you.
Would you say it's Ramos a little bit, a similar thing?
Yes, 100%. So a high-level guy with Ramos is going to beat him. Same with Cara de Zapato. And Heinisch is one of these guys that'll push you into that 5th round even. What'd you end up taking away from this fight? Because you hear me gloating. I'm making money.
I'm the same. I'm right with you on Heinisch. Carlos Zapato, I'm surprised I'm more surprised that he had this little hot run for the last year and a half than I am
Tim Boetsch.
I'm more surprised that he had this little hot. So my rule, and I probably have said it before about him, if Shoeface is fighting in Brazil, I'm winning money betting with Shoeface. If he's fighting out of Brazil, I'm probably going to go against him. So I kind of like everything Heinisch is given from me going forward, though. So I think there's money to be made with Heinisch still as an underdog. I think both guys... Junior's going to be fighting no names, and he'll be a favorite in all his fights, and Heinisch is still going to be the under.
I agree. He's got tougher fights ahead of him where Cara de Zapato's going to be able to get a couple other regional guys, debuters in there and look like a murderer, and they're like, oh, best ground game in the world. Yeah, against Tim Boetsch and those level of fighters. Eric Spicely, not going into these top 15 type of level. The main event came and went. We had a 5-rounder at 170 pounds. Kevin Lee moving up for the first time ever. Rafael dos Anjos being there for a while, only losing to elite level Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. But before that, beating Neil Magny, beating Robbie Lawler, beating these other 170-pound guys, where I personally felt like that was going to end up playing a little bit more. Where Kevin Lee, the more and more I thought about it as the weigh-ins went, as I've said it before here, sometimes when these guys go up in weight, all of a sudden they're like, oh, cool, I don't have to train as hard. Where at 155, he had to run 10 miles a day. All of a sudden, he's at 170, he's like, I only got to run 1 mile a day. Cool, this is easy. And then you feel it. After that first round, Kevin Lee was spent. Kevin Lee had nothing left. Great first round. He won that first round. I would agree with that. He definitely came with power, but, second round, done. Kevin Lee was holding on. He had some explosions here and there, here and now and there, but third round, it was just more of the same. Dos Anjos pushing forward, not letting Kevin Lee get his gas tank or his breath in there. The takedowns really adding up, and arm triangle finally getting it done in the 4th round for Dos Anjos. Those championship rounds have notoriously been the hardest rounds for Kevin Lee. I think that's a trend we're seeing with this young man, regardless of the weight class. What do you end up taking away from this one?
He's just not a cardio king. And Dos Anjos, unfortunately, now looking at this fight, it seems so, hindsight 2020, Dos Anjos has been training for this exact fight with bigger, better guys. Mm-hmm. So the Colby Covingtons, the Tyron Woodleys, the wrestlers with heavier hands that are more naturally 170ers.
More gas tank.
I didn't think that Kevin Lee's body looked bad at this weight at all. He looked all cut up, but unfortunately, he just isn't that great. He's kind of one of the guys that talked himself in this position, and it's so me to jump on the hype train when it's headed off the mountain. And that's kind of what I feel like for Kevin Lee. I feel like we even had this conversation where I said like a few weeks ago, where does he go from here? What happens with Kevin Lee? And you're like, no, I kind of disagree. I think he'll be all right at 170. And I don't think so anymore. I don't know what Kevin Lee kind of does. I think he's figured out. I think he's kind of
I think that he fights lower echelon guys and beats them. A lot like we're saying with Junior and stuff. He's able to finish these guys that are never going to see the top 15 in the division.
What do you think? What's a 170 or what's a good fight for him next?
Coming off of a loss? Well, I got to say that Chiesa fight at 170. The rematch.
That's not a bad call.
I'm telling you. That's not about it. And it's already got hype on it, so it's like, all right, cool. Well, you lost. Chiesa's lost as well. Boom.
What about for Dos Anjos? Where does he go from there? I feel like he gets nothing off this.
I agree. This does nothing for Dos Anjos, especially as bad as Lee looked moving on later into the rounds. He did give a good showing for himself, but as far as the 170 division, this tells us nothing because they were both just bloated 55ers. So I do think Dos Anjos he needs to get a ranked
about
opponent.
This fight, though. It didn't really cost me too much because Lee wasn't expensive enough, and he still broke that 50-point barrier. But Dos Anjos all day. He kind of, after the first, tentatively the second, but no argument. after the second round,
Yeah,
he controlled the entire rest of the fight. So, yeah, interesting. It's wild. It's
so
crazy
if you
stuff.
were to give this fight night a rating from A to F, American school grading system, we know how good that is, what would you classify this fight night as?
I feel a little bad because I have a biased opinion, but it's because it's me. It's not you.
Please, I just want to hear
It's not you.
your personal.
It's like a 6.
I asked you letters.
See, American
grading system. Boom. Whatever that is.
A C+.
There it is. C+. I was going to go B+, honestly. I thought we had a lot of finishes.
Wow.
Almost an A card.
Finishes equal higher grade for you?
I totally agree.
They don't for me.
For me, they do.
And we had decision. To me, it can't even be considered a fight of the year unless it's a decision fight or like a finish in the third. If it's finished in the first round, that isn't even in talks to be a fight of the year.
love that. But there was we had some grueling
finish
fights
of the year, but it's
I think Ladd versus Eubanks also helped
a great
it.
fight,
Exactly.
but that was the decision.
Yeah, I agree, but that's why I'm saying there was finishes, and then we had a great decision couple fights in there too, and that was one of them where I'm like, damn, that was a good ass fight. We got one coming up in Sweden, getting a little bit of heat.
Sweden. Maybe we got a fight coming up in Sweden
With Alexander Gustafsson against Anthony Smith.
Yeah,
Woo!
it
hurts. It hurts. Where do we go from there? They're not fighting John Jones next because Gustafsson's in that same Cormier position, and Smith just lost handedly. So that's the main event. Why?
The winner of the fight versus Anthony Smith Gustafsson will fight Santos next, and the loser will probably fight somebody like... What's that guy's name that he gets knocked out every fight from London with the
Jimmy Manuwa. He's going to be on the card that night
Manuwa.
against Amir Latifi.
Yeah.
That's on that same night. So that's actually one I'm more excited for than the main event. Just because...
I bet it comes on at a
brutality.
weird time, too.
I would agree with
It's
that.
going to be a weird time fight card, and that's another reason that it's hard for us to find when we look in the listings, because it's not coming on at that normal.
We got enough time to break that down, though. We're going to have 2 weeks where you're going to be getting our unadulterated opinion on the world. You're welcome very much, fans and friends out there. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you're going to be following us.
And you can tell them to find us at Lesbo and the Bean, or what we're known as now.
LatB!